Hey everyone, it's your girl Monica Leigh, and on this week's episode of the Drive Thru, we are talking about the things we don't talk about. What I mean by that are the awkward moments, the quiet thoughts, just the everyday feelings we all experience, but honestly, the ones we rarely say out loud. You know, this episode isn't about fixing anything. It's not about having answers. It's really just about honesty, point blank. Because I think we all walk around carrying thoughts and emotions that feel either too small to bring up or just too uncomfortable to explain. And so we just tend to keep them to ourselves. I'm sure everybody has gone through this at one point or another in their life. And it's normal. So I wanted to create space for that today. I feel like so much of life happens in between the big moments, in between the milestones, in between the things we either don't post or talk about publicly. And that's honestly where most of the real stuff lives. So why is it that we don't talk about certain things? Right? Like, have you always wondered that why is it that we don't talk about certain things? I really believe that somewhere along the way, we honestly just learned how to edit ourselves. We learned what's okay to say, what's too much, what might make people uncomfortable. So instead of saying what we're really thinking, we soften it. We just joke it away. We say, I'm fine, when we're not. I mean, I can be the first person to say that. That has applied to me before in life. And, you know, it's not because we're dishonest. It's just because we literally are just trying to survive socially. We don't want to be the person who brings the mood down, right? We ever thought about that? Like, oh, I don't feel like going here, or, you know, it's not a good time to talk to this person just because of the way that you are feeling. And you don't want to be the person that gets blamed or have the finger pointed at them saying, oh, well, because they said something or because they're feeling this way, they just ruined my whole mood or my whole day. I'm sure we all can attest to that. But we also don't want to seem dramatic, and we don't want to sound ungrateful. So the only other option is to stay quiet. And what's interesting is that the things we hide are usually the most human parts of us. I mean, these can include the doubts, the confusion, the moments where we don't feel confident or sure or even settled. And we always seem to think everyone else has it together. So we ultimately just keep our questions, concerns to ourselves. But what about on the other side of things? What about the everyday awkward moments? So let's first talk about the everyday stuff, okay? Because honesty does play a key in this, and there's so much of it, right? So, for example, have you ever replayed a conversation in your head, and it could be hours after it happened? Like, you know, for example, you could just be sitting there, mind your own business, and then suddenly you remember something that you said earlier, And now you are analyzing it from every possible angle. And trust me when I say that, we are all guilty of this at some point. Some of us tend to overanalyze a little bit more than others, and it's okay. It's just the way that we have always been programmed, or our brain has been wired. It's not a bad thing. It makes us have to kind of really think more so before automatically assuming the worst. So, you're thinking, oh, well, did that sound weird? Or why did I say it like that? Or even, did you say it the wrong way? And then meanwhile, the other person has probably moved on with their life completely. There are some of us that are just like, okay, it was said and done. I'm now just thinking about, okay, when's happy hour? Or when's our dinner reservation? It's an afterthought to them. Or another example is, what about texting? This is definitely a real issue in today, and that is we tend to read so much into punctuation. I've heard this before, as someone that has a teenager. I'm just trying to keep up with the dialect or the shortcuts or the emojis, right? Like, so I'm always telling him, hey, can you just please, if you're going to ask me something or if you're going to tell me something in a text, just put it that I can actually understand it. Don't do any shortcuts, because I might not even be thinking anything, so, but that this is a real thing, right? So again, with the tone, with the response time, that's also another thing. Have you ever realized, like, well, if somebody doesn't respond to you right away, it's the first thing, like, you think of, oh my gosh, did they get it? Did I get blocked? Are they angry with me? Did I say something to them that maybe from our last conversation or the last time we hung out or saw each other or spoke, that maybe I did something to offend them or hurt their feelings? And we tend to overanalyze, overthink, when ultimately it's just called life. We are all busy. We all have different schedules. We're all in different professions. So, jumping the gun or being assumptuous, unfortunately, it's the norm. But we learn as we go. But, sometimes, with texting, a period can feel aggressive, right? If you have somebody in, the younger generation today, I have been questioned, if I put a period behind, a sentence, because that is how I was raised in school. A period is part of punctuation mark, and that just means that you are stating something, and that is how you close that statement, that sentence off. Now it's like, if you put a period behind it, are you mad at me? Did I do something wrong? So literally, I am trying to adapt to what people often assume to be the worst. It's really not. It's just different times that we're living in right now. And then also emoji can feel loaded, right? If you don't put an emoji, does that mean that you really don't want to be bothered? You could, or you feel a certain way about a person. Again, this falls in line with that. And then usually the one that stands out to me is not getting a response at all from somebody, right? We tend to take it personally. I've always said, and I'll be the first one to say that no response is a response, but that's not necessarily always the case, but it definitely can warrant an answer. That an answer doesn't necessarily have to be spoken. It could just mean that person read what you said, they acknowledged it, but maybe they just didn't feel a need to respond with a text or even a word. That's just something also that, can definitely keep us kind of on edge, and we never want to talk about how exhausting that it can be. Or those moments when you run into someone unexpectedly, right? And then for a split second, you forget how to even act like a normal person, right? You either smiling too hard or talking too fast, or you tend to say goodbye 3, 5, 7 times. Guess what? I am guilty of all 3 of those, and I do tend to talk fast. And I think it's not because I want to necessarily rush to get what I'm saying out. It's just naturally what I've adapted myself to. And I feel like, if somebody can understand what I'm saying, and they can respond to me, then, why should I need to adjust? But these are just some things that I have been more aware of, especially as I've gotten older. But, we all experience these moments, but no one really ever acknowledges them. Right. And I think that there's something comforting about admitting that life is awkward sometimes. And guess what? It's okay. It's okay. It's true when they say the quiet pressures that we carry, we tend not to really focus on those topics too much, right? It's like we don't talk about it enough because we don't either want to worry or burden anyone with those types of thoughts. And that doesn't necessarily mean a negative thought either. The pressure to look like you're doing well, or the pressure to always have the answers, the pressure to feel confident all the time. There's this unspoken expectation that once you reach a certain point in your life, you should feel settled. And a lot of us don't. And more importantly, it is not true. Not one bit. Because I am a firm believer to always be thankful for what you have. Even if it's not exactly what you want at this point, always be grateful. Always be thankful. Because it's not saying that you are going to permanently stay where you are. It just means that you haven't reached to where you need to go. And, you can be grateful and still feel overwhelmed. 100%. You can be grateful for what you have and still be overwhelmed. But you can also be proud of yourself and still feel unsure. You can be moving forward and still feel stuck. I think this one really resonates with a lot of us in the world today, right? We feel like we are making strides, we're making moves, things are happening for us. There's things on the horizon that we have yet to see, but yet we feel either we're not going fast enough, or we feel like maybe we're missing something, or we're looking for validation. But, we don't talk about that enough. Instead, what we do is we compare ourselves to where we think we should be. And that translates to timelines, where we are, how our progression has been. Are we progressing? Have we hit any milestones? Or if we have, how much longer is it going to take to reach the next one? But then when we don't match up with what our initial goals are, we then start to internalize it. We tell ourselves we're behind, that we missed something, that everyone else figured it out except us. But the truth is that most people are honestly figuring things out quietly. We also feel that, figuring things out on our own is also a reflection of, again, not wanting to burden anybody, not wanting to feel judged, not wanting to feel characterized. We really need to get ourselves out of that mindset completely. Something else, though, that I wanted to kind of discuss on this is when we outgrow not just people, but the seasons as well, too, right? We don't talk about that enough. And it's a real thing. It's outgrowing people. Not because anything bad happened or because there was a falling out, but honestly, just because sometimes life it shifts, and it shifts us in a different direction. Whether you've changed, they've changed, the season ended. And sometimes that's one of the hardest things to process because there is no clear reason, right? I mean, have you ever experienced where you can miss people and still not know they're not meant to be in your life anymore? Or you can appreciate a chapter without wanting to go back to it. And that doesn't make you cold or disloyal. It actually means you're growing. But we don't talk about how emotional that can be. You know, we don't talk about the guilt that comes with growth or the grief that can exist even when you are doing what's best for you. One thing that I've realized in life is that growth looks different on people. Some of us will mature a lot faster. We will start a new season a lot sooner. And we have just decided to go into a different direction altogether. And guess what? That's okay. That is okay. We are not made to stay stagnant. We are not made to not evolve into the next best version of who we are. So I think it's something that we really need to acknowledge and to understand that it is okay to go at your own pace and to make decisions for the greater good, for you, for your family, for your future. And then in terms of nowadays, I feel people tend to be so critical on people's thoughts and their feelings that people just tend to shut down and they don't want to share because they don't want to be judged. So finding that happy medium, finding that one or two people in your close circle of friends or even family, you know, you just want to find a support system for you that acknowledges, hey, when you want to talk, there is no judgment. And it's easy for me to say that that's the way it should be, but that doesn't translate to what it is. And I think that kind of takes us into, you know, the comparison and the illusion of having it together. So we don't talk enough about how misleading appearances can be. You know, we see what people choose to show, the wins, the confidence, the highlight moments. I mean, this is certainly very apparent on social media. You know, people are just showing us what they want to share. And they are entitled to that. They are entitled. It does give the illusion that, oh, their life is so perfect. Nothing negative has ever happened to them, or they've never experienced loss or grief or failure, any of that. But then it becomes us being assumptuous. And that's not the case. People are sharing with us what they want to share with us. And that is their right. But we don't see the pauses, right? We don't see the uncertainty and then the internal conversations that are happening. So we tend to then compare our real lives to someone else's curated version. And then we wonder, you know, why we feel off. I do believe, though, that once you realize that everyone has doubts, they just don't always talk about them. It does change the way you see yourself. It gives permission to breathe, to move at your own pace, it makes you stop measuring your life against someone else's. And I think that's something that is important to acknowledge, especially today and what is happening today. But why talking about it matters is because the things we don't talk about, doesn't make you weak. It makes you actually relatable. And it reminds people that they're not alone in their thoughts, that they're not strange for feeling the way they do. Sometimes the most powerful things you can do is say, yeah, I feel that too. That's where connection lives. Not in perfection, not in having it all figured out, but just in honesty, just in honesty. And I feel that, the one thing that we need to understand is the things that we don't want to talk about, whether it's serious, whether it's awkward, whether you might find something or see something that's funny that, you are so worried about sharing because you're worried about how somebody else is going to view that, or more importantly, how they are going to view you. Stop it. Stop it. People want to talk to people that can relate to the things that you share. And you never know the things that, that we talk about that we think are relatable to people, or the things, I guess I should say, that we don't want to speak on. Sometimes that person is waiting for that moment for that person to bring up that topic or to share that experience with them, because of the simple fact that they're going through the same thing, or they're thinking the same thing, or they might need just a lending ear, just to hear them, and maybe just to kind of suggest ways, on how to go about doing that. So it's not about being perfect, right? It's not about having it all figured out at all. But it does matter to talk about these things. And let me be very clear, talking and sharing things with people, that should come at your own pace. There is not a certain timeline or requirement that dictates, oh yeah, so now I'm ready to talk to her about such and such, or oh yeah, so now I feel like that, tomorrow I should talk to him about this. I'm ready. Or, I'm feeling like, it's been weeks and, I think that this would be a good time to reach out. There is no timeline. So stop treating it like there needs to be one. As you all know, time waits for no one. We need to be in this moment as we speak right now, because once time is gone, it's gone forever. And I think that we need to do a better job, and I hold myself accountable to this too. We need to do a better job of reminding ourselves about things like that. What I will say is this. If you're listening to this right now and thinking, okay, it's not just me, then this conversation did what it was supposed to do. You're not behind, so please don't think that. You're not broken, so please don't think that. And you're not alone in the moments you keep quiet. Sometimes the things we don't talk about are the very things that connect us the most. That also doesn't mean that just because something's comfortable or more easier for me to convey or converse with someone doesn't translate to, oh, well, you need to step it up. You need to have that type of vulnerability and that transparency to do the same. Like, what's wrong with you? You're in your 30s, you're in your 40s. Like, we're adults here. You have kids. Like, you need to start doing better. No, there is no timeline. You start now. Don't worry about what didn't work in the past. Don't worry about how you handled it in the past. Don't worry about people, the misconception of people looking at you sideways or, thinking that, they're judging. It doesn't matter. Just start. But remember, there is no timelines. You start when you're ready, just as long as you start. And that's the most important thing. So I just want to say thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for taking this ride with me on the drive through this week. And until next time, take care of yourself and don't forget to pull up. And I'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Bye.